Not live yet. Oh, we're live. Happy Thursday, everybody. Hope you're doing well. It's June. How about that? It's June. Getting ready to record episode number 50 of Mike in the Midwest here in just a second. Let me get a couple things set and we will get rocking and rolling. All right. We're talking the evolution of, not dance. We're talking the evolution of Mike's music on this show. So let's get to it. What is today? June 3rd? Yeah. June 3rd. Here we go. Let's get cracking. Well, hey, everybody. Happy Thursday. Welcome to episode number 50 of Mike in the Midwest, a mini podcast for the amazing patrons just like you of the Be Our Guest podcast. Hope everybody is doing well here on this abbreviated work week in the United States. We had Monday for Memorial Day, so hopefully you're chugging right along and looking a great weekend in front of you. I have a special surprise planned. Not this weekend, but next weekend. Nobody knows about it, just me. I will be sharing on social media. It's not going to Walt Disney World or anything like that, but I think I know you. I think you will enjoy the updates, the pictures. Never been to this place, never done anything like this, but I think you're going to be in for a treat here. Not this weekend, but next weekend. Super excited for that. And it will tie into next Thursday's Mike in the Midwest episode. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to that one. But today we are getting together as we do every Thursday. My special little family of patrons. Thank you all for supporting the podcast, for making it possible, for allowing us to build these relationships around the entire world. It's really nice. I haven't said this a whole lot, but if you really dive into the history of our podcast over the past 13 years, honestly, lives have been changed other than mine. I mean, I was a school teacher when this all started. I've become somebody who works in travel full time, which is a blessing for me. Because of this show, I've got to do some amazing things, but I know that a lot of our listeners have met each other. Of course, we've talked about the story of Jay and Melissa, who got married. They met on the podcast cruise. They have two wonderful little girls living right outside of the Magic Kingdom right now. And I mean, there's just stories like I've met Masayo from Japan and friends over in the UK. Again, I'm just a guy from Missouri. I would have never met anybody from Japan, most likely, or had a friend, multiple friends in the United Kingdom, friends in Australia. Now it's amazing. And I know a lot of our relationships have been built listener to listener. And that makes me super happy. And when you support the podcast each month, you might not know it, but you could be changing some stranger's life that you don't even know, but you're helping them maybe just enjoy something during a downtime. We always try to make the show, the main Be Our Guest podcast exciting and happy. We'll address things that aren't perfect. Right now, I wish we had Fast Pass back. I wish we had fireworks. It's not ideal. I wish Columbia Harbor House was open, but for the most part, you come for a nice escape from reality. Reality's tough enough, right? We have our jobs, we have our obligations. If you're listening to us on a run or listening to us as you're walking the dog or doing the dishes or cutting the grass, you don't need negativity, right? You've got enough in your life. So we try to keep it light. We try to keep it happy. And I really hope you enjoy tomorrow's Be Our Guest podcast, the Friday one. We do a little nostalgic dive into the old guidebooks from the early 2000s. And we look at their insider tips and their hot tips and did you knows, and we see how many of those stand up in 2021, especially in these weird times that we're living in with COVID restrictions still in place in some places. So I really hope you enjoy tomorrow's show. I know it's a little bit off, but it was meant to put a smile on your face and to really look back at how far we've come. I'm a history buff and I'm a retro video games, retro pop culture kind of person. I like to look back on, The Love Boat is my favorite all-time sitcom. Rest in peace, Gavin McLeod. Love the captain. That I just like looking back. I think it's because I had a really good childhood. I think if I had a horrible childhood, I might not be as nostalgic for the past times, but I had a good childhood. We didn't have a lot. My family wasn't rich by any means. We were probably scraping by. My dad worked in construction and didn't work in the wintertime because of that. We didn't have hardly anything in the wintertime, but it was fine. You know, we made do. Because of that, I think I just look back fondly on spending time with my grandparents and, putting a fire in the stove and making, we used to just make cheap meals, macaroni and cheese. And, what was it called? It was like, some kind of like bread that you would toast and you put white gravy on top. We'd have that for dinner and it was super good. I didn't know we were poor when I was a kid, but looking back, we didn't have a lot, but we had love. And that's really what it's all about. We had each other and I got to do some cool stuff. I got to go to Six Flags a lot. So that was cool. All right. So let's get to the feedback from last week's show. And then I have a fun topic I've been really wanting to talk about, and we're going to tackle that today. But first of all, the feedback from last week's show. Of course, last week we talked about graduation season, how kids of today graduate 6 times before they graduate from high school. No, well, kind of, maybe. And so we have some feedback, and our first feedback is from our reliable Megan Green. I always appreciate her writing in. She has great feedback every week. Make sure you always keep writing in, Megan, because I sure appreciate it. She said, this one brought back a lot of fun memories. We had project graduation at my high school too, but we didn't have it at the high school. I lived in a more rural area, so our high schools didn't have all the fun stuff that yours did. I mentioned how our high school had a pool, had a batting cage, had a couple of big gyms, big commons areas. So we did our project graduation actually at the big theater at the high school itself. I went to a very, very large suburban high school in St. Louis. Anyway, back to Megan. So instead, they bussed us over to the naval base that was in our county, and we got to use their rec center for the night. They had an indoor pool, basketball courts, a bowling alley, and they brought in things like an inflatable gladiator arena, obstacle course, and mechanical bull. How awesome is that? Dude, you win with the mechanical bull. We did have the inflatable kind of like the big like Q-tips you would hit each other with, like American Gladiators back then. We had that at ours too. We did have like an obstacle course. We had this one thing, like you would get put on you would get tied to like a belt, and the belt was connected to a bungee, and you would have to run at each other. And but as soon as that bungee got tight, it would snap you back to snap you back away from the other I can't remember what the goal was. Maybe you had to grab a ball or something in the middle. I can't remember. Yeah, I love the show because it brings back memories. Your feedback helps me. I love these. I love looking back at this stuff. But mechanical bull, oh my gosh, that's awesome. She says our local optometrist clubs provided all kinds of food like chicken tenders and French fries all night. And then closer to time to go, which was 2 a.m., they switched over to breakfast with pancakes, sausage, and bacon. It was so good. What a great time. Okay, Megan, I want to graduate from your high school. That is awesome. We had unlimited pizza all night. It didn't change. We stayed until 6 a.m. because it was light out when we left, but it was still pizza at 5 a.m. I mean, it didn't change over to a breakfast buffet like you guys have, but at the naval base, that's so cool. That's creative though, because remember all these things, I didn't think about this when I was in high school, but I do now. It's all a parent volunteer, teacher volunteer kind of committee that gets together and tries to really make a positive experience for the students. And I had a great one. It sounds like Megan had a great one. So very cool that they found an alternate location that was just killer. And you guys got to have so much fun with all that stuff. Oh my gosh. I'm smiling just thinking about the fun you had. Oh, that's so cool. Thanks for sharing, Megan. I appreciate it. Dennis Keithley, my buddy down in Texas by way of St. Louis, says, great episode. I agree that a lot of the additional graduations are for the parents now. My kids certainly don't remember preschool graduation, but I do. I totally same. I mean, like I was crying at Mallory's preschool graduation. She probably doesn't remember a thing. I was like, oh, she looks so grown up. And she was like, 4.5. Also, we had a similar event to project graduation at Lafayette High School in suburban St. Louis. Go Lancers. I don't remember them calling it that, but it was an all-night event with carnival games, gaming tables with fake money. That's what we had. We had a casino with fake money, food, etc. It ended with a slideshow. I remember driving home at 6 a.m., which was probably not the best idea after being up all night, and then crashing and sleeping until about 6 p.m. That's exactly what we did. We got out at 6 a.m. Fortunately, I lived right across the street from my high school, so it wasn't a long drive. But yeah, I was exhausted. Now, we didn't have a slideshow at the end. That's a great idea. But here's the thing the DJ played that just tore me up because I'm nostalgic, right? It hit me like a ton of bricks. The last song the DJ played, and folks my age will get this, Into the Road by Boys to Men. Oh, dude, it's over. We're out of here. You don't get to come back. You don't get to play baseball for Hazelwood Central anymore. You're not on the basketball team. You're not writing the yearbook. I mean, I know college was going to be fun. I had a lot of opportunities in front of me, but I liked high school. And it was like, oh, don't play that song. But guess what I played the next year when I was the DJ? Yeah, I played Into the Road and tore up those kids in class of 93. So that's just, fair game. Trisha Hellwig, thank you for writing in. Dennis, thanks for the feedback. That was awesome. And glad to hear some West St. Louis County feedback there. Love that. Trisha says, in general, graduation was meh for me. The exception was 8th grade because of the friends that I had, and more impactful, I was moving away from the only group of friends I had ever known. Both of my parents have master's degrees, so graduation until the end of college was expected. My mom made me walk at my college graduation, though I could have cared less. I was ready to move on to official adulthood. By the time I got to my master's degree, I was checked out of being a student. The only thing I remember about the whole thing was having to pay a $100 processing fee to get my paper degree, basically a money grab for the school. Jokingly, I told the person processing my transaction that my degree better be gold plated. Apparently, it went over her head because she was very concerned. I was upset that there was, in fact, no gold on the paper degree. I get it, Trisha. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, I understand, because when I got my master's degree, I don't know if I mentioned this in the show last week. I got my master's degree a couple of years after I got my undergrad. And I was obviously I was a teacher at the time. So I did it. I think we met twice a week in the evenings. It was a very simple program to get a master's degree that the district needed for their district accreditation, more teachers with master's degrees. So they partnered with this online university basically to bring in a couple of instructors a couple nights a week. And we did that for like 18 months. The district paid for my master's. I was like, woohoo. Yeah. Pam was upset because Pam paid for her full master's degree. And then 2 years later, I came in and got it for free by the district. So she was not happy. And she's still not happy with me. She always still brings that up. You got your free master's degree. I paid for mine. I paid for it for years. Anyway, so we did it at night. It was not challenging. Basically, you just had to have discussions and focus groups, and you wrote small papers here and there, and you did a cumulative, I think it was a research project. And I think my paper was only about 75 or 80 pages that I wrote. It was cooperative learning, basically, in the elementary science classroom. Nothing really groundbreaking. So I wasn't because of that, I wasn't super proud of the master's degree. It was a means to an end. It was a means that the district needed people to get master's degrees. I was all gung-ho on the district, so I said yes. Of course, when I got my master's degree, that moved me up on the pay scale, so I enjoyed that too. And I was always going to get my master's degree anyway, so why not get it while it's free, while this one little program was happening? But when it came time for my graduation, I was working down at Space Camp in Alabama, and I wasn't going to take the weekend off from working at Space Camp to come back and walk in this ceremony in St. Louis. So I stayed down at Space Camp and, just had my master's degree, and that was it. Didn't walk. I don't really regret it because working at Space Camp every day was a gift. It was so fun. It was the best teaching position I ever had, and I loved it. So yeah, I kind of get where you're coming from, Trisha, because sometimes we do get schooled out. I get it. I mean, I've spent up till 4 years ago, I spent every day of my life, it felt like, in school, either as a student or as a teacher. And I loved it. Don't get me wrong, but it was a grind and I was just kind of schooled out. I get it, Trisha. Thanks for writing in. You guys with the feedback, thank you so much. And I would love to have more feedback on today's show, because today we're hopping into the topic at hand. And what we're going to talk about, I came across an old YouTube video that was one of the very first viral videos on YouTube. And I bet you've seen it a bunch of times. And it's one of the greatest, especially for a dad like me. Did you ever watch the Evolution of Dance video on YouTube? Yes, you did. You did. You did. You probably did. You did. It's this guy. I think he's like in an orange shirt. I'm assuming he's at a comedy club. He's just up on a stage. And he goes through the evolution of dancing from, the beginning of like the, big band era to the 50s and, and the doo-wop area. And then he gets into, rap and pop and rock and all the crazy dances that have come around in the last 10 years. And he does them all. And he's just a dad and a dad bod, but he nails them. And it is the most funny thing of all time, because it's true. It is. Dance has evolved over the years. So I was thinking about this the other day, and I was thinking about, I worked in music for a lot of the years of my life. I spent time, years and years working as a mobile DJ, DJing wedding receptions, proms, homecomings, bonfires, anniversary parties, whatever, car shows, whatever they needed music for. I've probably DJ'd it, and I've eaten a lot of muscatoli at wedding receptions, served all over St. Louis. Every wedding reception has muscatoli. Also, pasta con broccoli too, but you just eat around the broccoli, and then it's fettuccine. So anyway, I did that, and of course, I worked at the skating rink for over a decade. I managed the skating rink, and every time I was working the rink, I would usually DJ the session just to pass the time. It was fun. And the kids always complained about when the other kids DJ'd, because like when you had like a 14-year-old kid DJing, they would only play like, death metal if they were a death metal fan, and nobody wanted to hear that. Maybe one kid did. Or, the guy that came in with the cowboy hat, he'd want to play country for 2 hours. Not everybody wanted to hear country for 2 hours. You got to play a mix. You got to keep the crowd happy. So a lot of times, just to cut that off, I would just DJ and kind of read the room and try to take care of everybody. But I did throw in my favorites. So anyway, I thought we'd talk about the evolution of music, but not music, the evolution of Mike's music. How did I kind of go through where I am today from the very beginning of and I'm talking about music media. How did I consume music? How did I get music? And as I think about it, the first kind of interaction that I had with music was when I was a little kid. One of the gifts, and you don't remember a lot of your toys from your childhood, but I absolutely remember this. One year, either at Christmas or my birthday, because my birthday is at the end of November. So it kind of all, as a kid ran together. It was all, the Christmas tree was up. I got a Fisher-Price record player. Now, this was like a little box that had, a little turntable on it. It had a little lid. You could close it up. It had a handle. You could carry it around. It had a little internal speaker. And it was built for kids, so it was probably, built to take a licking. And I remember getting that. Now, here's the thing about music. My dad is a very musical person. My dad, ever since he was like 12 years old, he was always in bands in like junior high, in high school. My dad's a drummer. And so my dad has always been involved in music. So I want to say that he probably wanted to get me involved in music just like he was. Didn't work, for the most part. I didn't play any instruments. I can't play a lick, and I can't read music. Probably breaks his heart. But the thing was, he got me that record player when I was probably 4 or 5. So my dad had a collection of records around the house. I just remember like was it Cream? Was that a band with Eric Clapton? I think that for some reason, like that vinyl 33 case stands out. He had that, but he had 45. So I played some 45s. But what I really remember playing with that Fisher-Price record player, and now see if you remember this, if you're around my age, is that my parents got me, and this is Disney related, these books that were on 45s. So basically what you would get, if you don't know what 45 is, it's a smaller record. It was basically, it's kind of like a single, a little bit longer. Like it's not a full album. It's a smaller record that you would play that had like a couple songs on it usually. But it was like your first Audible, like your first audiobook. You would get a little book, and in the back of the book, like in the back cover, it would have a pocket, and there would be a 45 record in there. So what you would do is you pull out these records, put them on the turntable, and you would get a book, and it would basically read you the book, and it would be kind of acted out like Audible books are, voice acting and stuff. But you could follow along as a kid with the words as it was read. And then when it got to the end of the page, it would make a sound, boop, and then you would turn the page and continue on. And it was a little illustrated book, but that's what I really remember. And I remember getting, Disney stories, Peter Pan, Haunted Mansion. I think I had one on the Haunted Mansion at some point, but I had a lot of Star Wars books like this. I remember like Return of the Jedi, or so, maybe not. I'm trying to think when the years were though, because I don't know if that lines up, but I do remember maybe having a Star Wars book or two, and really, really loved the fact that I could consume music, or not music, but basically that was the only way to relive these movies and these stories. Because remember back then we didn't have VCRs, we didn't have videotapes. We didn't have cable forever at our house, and then we got basic cable. That was it. So this was the only way to kind of relive those things. And it was cool because you could read the book by itself, but when you really wanted to spice it up, you put the little record on the record player and just kind of zone out and follow along. So let me know if you ever had those little, books and records, because I thought they were pretty cool. I'd like, I need to go to like the Goodwill and see if I can find one. It'd be fun just to have one, just to have around. Now, after that, so, I'm talking like middle school at this point. The thing was, what you got was, You would try to tape music off because, of course, we didn't have an income source because I didn't work yet. So what I would try to do is tape music off of the radio because I had a super cheap little stereo in my in my bedroom. I think it was called like Grand Prix or something was the company. It wasn't a very nice one, but it had like two cheap tower speakers, dual decks, radio. And so you would get some blank tapes and you just tape over these tapes forever and ever, like multiple times. And you would try to record stuff off Casey's Top 40 or something like that to build up the songs you like. And you would always hope the DJ wouldn't talk over it, but they would always talk over it till they hit the post. And then, you had to just deal with that because it's free music, but you got your song, most of it. So that was cool. I do remember when we moved over to between 6th grade and 7th grade, we moved from my childhood home to a new home over in the district that my dad wanted me to go to high school, or where I ended up graduating high school from, across the street. Again, I said my dad worked in construction. He was working a job in this new subdivision. He liked the location. He liked the houses. They were affordable. And so he put that my parents bought a house in one of the subdivisions that he was working on. So we sold our little starter house in the spring, but our new house wasn't going to be done until the end of summer. So we lived with my grandparents for about 6 to 8 weeks, I think. It was super tight because they didn't have a big house. But I do remember at that time, it was over the summer, I had a little boom box. And I was always sad because my boom box only had one speaker. It didn't have a speaker on both sides. It was super cheap. But it played tapes. And I just remember listening to KD 96.7 here in St. Louis, or 103.3, which was KHTR, the hit music station, and playing my tapes. So that's kind of where I got my music in like 6th grade ish. Now, once I started to go to the mall and stuff like that, and yes, that's what we did. People of my age, I know if you're younger, you're like, go to the mall. Why do you go to the mall? Go to Amazon. No, we went to the mall just to hang out. But when I was in middle school, we would go to the mall and there were multiple music stores in the mall. The ones I remember, and they may be the same for you or they may be different, so let me know in the feedback. We had a Camelot Music. And I don't know if this was a national chain or not, but this was a big music store in my mall, Jamestown Mall. And it had down the middle, basically just, bins of records of like, 33 albums and 45s. And you could go through and just kind of thumb through, look at the art on the album covers, see what was out. They had a new releases section. They also had cassette tapes. You could go through those. Now, if you bought a cassette tape, let's see if you remember this. When you bought a cassette tape back in the day, now the cassette tapes were probably about 6 inches long, 8 inches long. They're pretty small, if you remember. But when you went to buy one at a store back in these days, they had these big, long, like handle looking things on them. They were probably 18 inches long. It was a security device, so you couldn't steal the tape. So when you would buy a cassette, you would take it up to the desk to pay for it, the counter. And then the employee would have to take some kind of secret magical key and it would pop out the cassette and you would have your tape. But it was always funny because they made sure. I mean, I understand they probably had to do that, but it was always, thinking back, you had this big, long attachment to every cassette. It was kind of crazy. Now, one of the things Camelot Music had back in the day, because you didn't have the discovery of music like you do now. Like right now, I mean, we're going to get to it at the end, but I subscribe to Apple Music. 75 million songs I have access to at any time. And just blows my mind because the reason I don't even hardly listen to music now because I'm overwhelmed. I don't know what to listen to. I have access to too many songs. But anyway, back then you didn't know what to listen to, but so they would maybe have some like new releases on a display in the store. You would hear stuff on Casey's Top 40 and maybe want to check that out. But there wasn't a lot of discovery. So they had in the corner, and this is crazy. They had these little stations. I think there was like 4 or 5 of them. You could put on headphones, just like I use here, over the ear headphones, like I use for the podcast. And you could select between, like 15 or 20 songs they had in there and just listen to them and see if you like them. And if you like them, you can buy them. Very cool. I used to love going in there and just checking stuff out, putting the headphones on and seeing what they had to listen to. And I guess I would encourage you to buy stuff. So now the one thing that they had at another store, they had these at Camelot, but for some reason I didn't buy them at Camelot. Get this, at our mall, get between Hot Sam's, the pretzel store, hot pretzels with all kinds of toppings, and Baskin Robbins, the ice cream shop. There was a store for a brief moment of time called Tape World. Tape World, very specific. They sold cassette tapes. And so you go down there kind of like Camelot. It wasn't as fancy. They didn't have as much. They didn't have the listening stations, but they had a lot of tapes. And the thing I would buy at Tape World, Casingles. Who remembers a Casingle? It's exactly what it was. It was a cassette, but it wasn't the full album. It might have one or two singles on one side, and then usually on the back, it would have like an alternate version of that song or some kind of B song that they probably didn't release anyway. They're just trying to throw some junk on that tape to fill it up. But yeah, cassette singles, man, we had a lot of those. Now, I mentioned my dad was in a band all the time. He was, even when I was in elementary school, middle school. He played at a local steakhouse Friday and Saturday nights. It was called Rick Albright and One of a Kind. My dad was the drummer. He did that for years. And then around the time I was in 6th or 7th grade, he decided that the band was kind of breaking up and he wanted to stay involved in music. He liked being involved in parties and stuff. So he became a mobile DJ himself, working for a company, a nationwide company called Complete Music. And so he got trained, and this was a big company in St. Louis. They had like 40 different sound systems. So they'd have, 40 different events going on every Saturday night. Every DJ would go to the main building, before their gig. They would go out. It was on Olive Boulevard here in St. Louis. There's like a warehouse. You would pick up your whole setup. You would pick up your big speakers, your power amp, your cords and your microphones and your lighting package. All your music would come on cassettes back then in these big briefcases. All your music for the event, you would take it out to the event, DJ the event, you bring it back to the warehouse after that on Saturday night, and then go home. And they had other events other than Saturday nights, but mostly it was Saturday nights. So my dad did that for years. Then he decided, you know what? I think I could do this on my own. So he quit Complete Music, started his own company. It was called Celebrate Disc Jockey Service. And he started doing this on his own. And so he started building his own company, which was kind of fun. So he first started with just like one system. My dad would go out and do it. Then he recruited me. So we bought a whole second set of speakers, lighting packages, cassettes, dubbed a whole nother set of cassettes. And so I started going out, and I was doing this right at 16 because I had to have a driver's license, right, to get to the wedding reception venues and stuff like that. I had a little Ford Ranger pickup truck at this time because I had to have something that would haul equipment. So I put everything in the back of the pickup truck. We did this out of our house. We used our 2-car garage to store all this DJ equipment. And eventually we got up to 8 different sound systems. So we could do 8 events at one time, 8 sets of, equipment. And some of the sets were made for larger venues. Like we had one, we called it the Killer System. Then we DJ'd like at a Marriott downtown St. Louis for a gigantic prom for this really ritzy girls Catholic high school. We only had to DJ the breaks because they had a big old band. Like it was called Bob Cuban and the Inman. They were big in the like 60s, but they also played contemporary music, and they had like 28 people in the band. But when they took breaks, I would DJ the current stuff that they couldn't play, like just all the booming bass music. So everybody get nutty. Like we had the fog machine, we had laser lights, we had a whole lighting package. It was awesome. But anyway, the good news about being in like middle and high school and your dad owning a DJ company, I never had to worry about music at all because any songs that I wanted, I bought it. Because at first we started on cassettes. Then my dad was like, I'm getting a CD player because think about it. We don't have to queue up a CD. The thing about DJing back in the day was you had to queue up every tape before the gig to the song you thought was most likely to be played off that tape. So you would guess like, okay, this tape has 6 songs on that side, 6 on that. I think out of those 12 songs is the most likely song I'll play during this gig because the bride would give us a feedback of like, is she a country fan? Is she a pop fan? What are her favorite songs? All that stuff before the event. Anyway, so eventually we bought CDs, and we just go down to Street Side Records or wherever and buy our CDs, just right off, consumer regular CDs. I remember the first CD that we bought was Steve Winwood. It had Roll With It on it. And I listened to that because I was just amazed by how a CD worked. So then what we did was we started carrying all the tapes, but also, some CDs. We had a CD player in we called it the rack. It had the mixer, and it had the tape players, but it also had a CD player. So you kind of mix it in. And eventually, of course, we started evolving over to all CDs and got rid of tapes. Then my dad got a CD burner. First one I had ever heard of. He got a CD burner so we could make custom CDs. So what you could do is make basically greatest hit CDs, and you wouldn't have to have as many CDs. That was amazing because Dude, when you're in high school and you have a CD burner and nobody else does, you are like rolling. It was everybody wanted to burn their own CDs, like making a mixtape, but a mixed CD, which was way better. Now, real quick, I don't want to go too long on this, but what I do remember is I was also one of the first people I knew that got one of those portable Discmans. And it wasn't a Sony Discman, it was some knockoff brand because I wanted to get the cheap one. And you had a little cassette that you would plug into your radio in the car that would go in the cassette hole, had a little wire, went out to your CD Discman knockoff thing, and you would put your CD in, and you thought you were the coolest of all time in high school, playing CDs in your car. Here's the thing though. This thing did not work at all because the thing, it skipped so bad. If you sneezed, it would skip. If you hit a speed bump, oh, for sure it was going to skip. I mean, you could go over just you know how they have tar between the little sections of your road and your subdivision. It didn't matter. It would skip. The thing skipped all the time. So I had a pillow in my truck, and I would sit it on a pillow, towels. I tried everything. It didn't matter. This thing skipped all the time. So eventually you just put everything back on a cassette and throw it in your deck and it wouldn't skip. But yeah, we thought we were the cool. My buddy Corey got one too. We both got them at the same time and they skipped so bad. But we thought we were the coolest, right? Oh gosh, I remember. We just went to drive around just so we could listen to CDs and it just never worked. I mean, we'd change how we drove, oh, here's a speed bump, slow down. I mean, probably causing almost accidents behind us because we didn't want the music to skip. Yeah, but it was just crazy. But when we got CDs, it was awesome because it was digital. There was no more queuing. You could go to any track you wanted. You could even program on the CD player. I want to hear number 7, then number 3, then number 9, then number 2. Basically, you were making a playlist off that CD. It was magical. It couldn't get any better than this, right? Carousel of Progress. So yeah, eventually, CDs were all the rage, but then digital came around and I will admit I did the Napster thing. Everybody did the Napster thing of my age. It was amazing. It was crazy. So you got on there, you got, stuff from your favorite, maybe places that you like to travel to, maybe your favorite songs, but they were always terrible quality, right? If you got a good quality track, you were just living. So yeah, I have lots and lots of stuff that I got that way. And then of course, where we are today is just living in a digital utopia. I mean, the fact is, like I mentioned earlier, Apple Music for what, like $10 a month. I get the bundle so that I have the storage and you got to, when you have 2 teenage girls, you got to have Apple Music Family, whatever it is, you just got to keep the family happy. But 75 million tracks that I could call up at any point right now on my phone or on my Amazon devices because I have it connected. It was amazing because remember when the iPod came out? I remember this because I got an iPod. This is how this whole podcast thing started. My wife got me an iPod for my birthday. I didn't know what to do with it, so I found a podcast. It was called Inside the Magic. Loved that I could listen to podcasts for free because I was kind of over music by that time. And I thought, God, this is great. Like I get a new podcast every week and it's absolutely free. I can just download it and sync it to my iPod. That was the greatest. And I thought about that. Like at first you could get 1,000 songs in your pocket. When I was a kid, you could take a cassette with you and maybe get 15 songs in your pocket and you thought you were living. 1,000 songs in your pocket. Who could listen to 1,000 songs? Crazy. Then I remember one year my wife got me for Christmas. She upgraded because I had a little bitty iPod. She got me the classic iPod. It was an 80 gig iPod. I think it held 30,000 songs. I was like, holy cow. This is nuts. 30,000 songs. And I still have that one. It was a bigger one, but it was that classic click wheel. And I use that thing so much. I basically listen to podcasts on it all the time, but I did have a lot of music on it because I could. I just went over to my dad's and copied all my favorite CDs and stuff. But yeah, it's amazing because every time we get there, like it can't get any better. 1,000 songs in your pocket, 30,000 songs in your pocket. 75 million songs available anytime. It's really kind of remarkable when you look at it came from playing a 45 on a Fisher-Price record player to where we are today. But then again, I'm nostalgic for those days, right? When you had just a few records you could listen to, they were special. They were physical media. They were really special because you didn't have any other choices. I'll be honest right now, with as much music as Apple Music has, I sometimes have a really hard time finding something to listen to because I just don't know where to start. I've built playlists, of my favorite songs on Apple Music, and I go to those. But it is hard. Like I could listen to any song I want, but what do I want to listen to? It's really remarkable. So I want to hear your feedback. How did your musical evolution happen for you? Did you start out? Did you have 8 tracks? We didn't have a lot of 8 tracks. My dad had one in his old step van, but it really wasn't worth talking about. We had those. My dad also had because of the DJ company, and he ended up working in radio for quite a few years. He had mini disc players. He had reel to reel. We had all kinds of stuff at the house, but that was basically my stuff that I talked about today. So give me your feedback. Doug here that's watching live said, I used to make my own mixtapes from cassettes. Talk about a long process. CDs were like a dream come true. Yes, you would try to woo your girl in middle school by making a mixtape. And remember, I could make mixed CDs. Oh, yeah, baby. I had the upper hand on everybody else. Not really. All right. Thank you so much for being a patron. Hope you enjoyed this kind of fun little journey down how the evolution of physical media with music has happened for me in my lifetime from the mid 70s up to today. But I do want to hear your story. So drop by patreon.com/BeOurGuestPodcast, give some feedback. Tell us how you started and your journey. How did it go for you? So until we get back together again next Thursday, you guys have a great weekend. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you real soon. Thanks, Doug. That was awesome. I'll talk to you guys later. Have a good one. Bye-bye.